Welcome back to Art Trippin, the lecture series, and we are in ancient Mesopotamia. Today we are talking about the Assyrian Lamassu. I'm Dr. Megan Lorraine Debin, and I'm an art historian, and this is Art Trippin lecture series.
Hi, I'm Dr. Megan Lorraine Debin, and this is Art Trippin.
The Assyrian Lamassu is a figure that is a kind of human-animal hybrid creature. So it usually has a body of a lion or a bull, and then it will have large bird wings, and then a human's head, sometimes male, sometimes female. This figure is an Assyrian protective deity and is often placed at the entrances to an Assyrian palace to ward off evil and to protect the palace from its enemies. It's also usually depicted as a large-scale sculpture. You can get a sense of the scale here in this image where you can see an average-sized human standing next to this figure that is gigantic. So this really would have been an imposing figure that would have inspired awe and wonder and maybe even fear as someone is entering into an Assyrian palace. This Lamassu appears to have the body of a bull or a lion, this stylized human head, and then large wings. If you look at the human head, you see this very typical ancient Mesopotamian style. The very stylized beard with the tight curls, this headdress, and the facial features are aligned with what we see in other ancient Mesopotamian art. I'm thinking of the Akkadian king's portrait, this early bronze sculpture, for example. Here we are looking at two more Lamassu figures with these flanking figures as well. This is an image from Lamassu that are held now in the Louvre Museum in Paris. This was originally the gate of the Dur Sharukin, which was this ancient Assyrian palace in modern-day Iraq. This is dated to about 717 BCE. This palace site was abandoned after the death of King Sargon II, and because of this, the sculptures are in really good condition. Again, we have these two Lamassu figures. They're flanking a doorway, and then alongside these Lamassu figures, we see other depictions of protective deities and priests and priestesses who are set up again as protective figures to protect the palace and to inspire fear and awe in anyone who approaches the palace and is heading toward the Apadana or audience hall of the ruler. When you look at this image here of the Lamassu from the Louvre, you can see that the Lamassu actually has 5 legs because it's meant to be seen both frontally and at a side or profile view. So as you're walking toward the palace, you see the 2 front legs, so you're viewing it frontally. As you are passing through the doorway and looking to the right and the left, looking at the Lamassu figures, you will see the legs in profile, and there you will see 4 legs. So really, these sculptures actually have 5 legs, which means that the artists are thinking about how the sculpture interacts with the viewer and the space around it. So this is a really cool innovation in ancient Mesopotamian art, to think about how the audience experiences the sculpture itself. Now here we're looking at an artist's recreation of how these Lamassu figures would appear on the exterior walls of an Assyrian palace. So I like to see these images because you get a sense of how the sculpture interacted with the architecture and with the viewer. Here I'm just showing you a few images of the unfortunate fate of some of these sculptures. Some of these Lamassu figures were damaged sometime in 2015. These images were considered pagan idols, and we have some video of ISIS damaging some of these ancient Lamassu figures. It's unknown what else may have been destroyed, but we did see some other ancient sculptures obliterated at the Mosul Museum in spring 2015. And I'd also like to add that there's a really interesting contemporary artist from San Francisco, California, who was working with 3D printing to try to recreate some of these sculptures that were damaged at the Mosul Museum. And please forgive my pronunciation. Morehshin Allahyari. And the artwork is called Material Speculation ISIS. And this is a project in which 3D technology is used to create digital and printed replicas of ancient artifacts that have been destroyed by ISIS. And this is part of her project to advocate for the preservation of cultural heritage. So I think this is a really interesting moment to mention this, because we do know that some of these Lamassu figures were historically destroyed. Now, if you can't go all the way to Paris, to the Louvre, or to the British Museum to view some Lamassu figures, we do have some Lamassu figures on view in the United States at the Metropolitan Museum, the Met in New York City. Now, I am located in Southern California, and here we have our own little bit of Assyriomania in modern Los Angeles. That's right. If you've ever driven north on the 5 freeway heading toward downtown Los Angeles, you have seen the Citadel Outlet Mall in the City of Commerce. This structure was restored in the 1990s and turned into this outlet mall. But originally, this was a replica of an Assyrian palace that was also a tire factory. It's a crazy story. So originally, this building was built in 1929, and this was the Sampson Tire and Rubber Company. This was the largest tire factory west of the Mississippi River at the time. And you'll notice by this date of 1929 that this is a kind of Assyrian revival style, which makes a lot of sense. In Southern California in the 1920s, there was a lot of Aztec and Maya revival, as well as ancient Mesopotamian revival. And this kind of architecture can be seen even in little details and elements of residential architecture from the 1920s and 30s in Southern California, especially around Los Angeles County. Now, this tire factory was actually based on a reconstructed model of the Palace of Sargon. This is where we would originally have had the Lamassu figures that are now on view in the Louvre in Paris. At the behest of the owner, the original architects, Morgan Walls and Clements, designed the wall in the style of King Sargon II's palace. Sargon was an Assyrian king with this 23-acre palace, and this tire plant, coincidentally or by design, covered about the same amount of land. At the entrance to the building, you see winged bulls with human heads. These are the Lamassu figures, and these are sort of intended to guard the interior, just like those at Sargon's palace did. On the exterior walls, you will also see guardian figures, and at the top on the roofline, you will see crenellations, which is a feature of castle or palace architecture at the time. Eventually, the Sampson Tire and Rubber Company no longer functions here. This building is sort of abandoned for a number of years, and in the 1990s, developers purchased this and wanted to tear this down and build a shopping center. But thanks to local art historians and architectural historians and people interested in historic preservation, they saved this building. And what the agreement eventually came to was that they would reconstruct and repair the facade. They would remove the back part of the building, and this is where the outlet shopping mall would be built. So if you go today to the Citadel outlets, and like the name makes sense now that you get the history. You will see the Lamassu figures up there above advertisements for Tuesday Taco Night. And if you go behind the wall, you will see all the modern day shopping amenities, but you can take some time to stop and admire the sculptures, the Lamassu figures, as well as the Guardian figures on the surface of the facade here at the Citadel outlets in the City of Commerce, just outside of downtown Los Angeles. That's all for now. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to Art Trippin on YouTube, follow Art Trippin on TikTok, and check out Art Trippin with Prof D on Instagram. Hope to see you again soon. I'm Dr. Megan Lorraine Debin, and this is Art Trippin, the lecture series.